here to do our Sunday Survivor series this week. I'll be talking about a lot of things today, a little bit about me, my diagnosis, my treatment. I also, on my page, put out a request for you guys to share what you'd like me to talk about. And a lot of you gave me some good suggestions, so we'll talk about things like tissue expanders and recovery. We'll talk about lymphedema and exercise. I'll also talk about some post-op must-haves and just things that were really helpful for me after surgery. And of course, I will, share things about me and my life outside of cancer, because cancer does not define any of us, right? So I'm really excited you guys had questions about exercise and lymphedema and how those two interact and what you're allowed to do, as well as things that you can do to minimize the side effects of tamoxifen and stuff like that. So I will talk about those things, but I do want to first put a disclaimer out there, of course, that I am a licensed physical therapist, but any recommendations I give here are just very general recommendations. You should always talk to your medical team before changing your activity or starting anything different. So please just keep that in mind. Every body is different. Everyone responds differently. So your medical team should really be the one guiding you. But I've done a lot of research on these things, and I'm going to share kind of what is out there in the research so that you guys can take these things to your doctors and make informed decisions and ask informed questions. So how was I diagnosed? I found a lump in my right breast while I was in the shower almost a year ago. It was the beginning of February 2018. And finally, about a month later, I was able to get into the primary care doctor, and they ordered a mammogram and an ultrasound, which I was finally able to get a month after that. They were very concerned, obviously, and I ended up getting a biopsy the next day. And then the day after that, the pathology came back, and it was positive for stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma on my right side, with positive lymph node involvement on the right side as well. So I'm finally home, and this is what I come home to.
Yes.
My sweet little girl. Yeah. This is my little girl, Bo. That's the hubs.
Bye.
But more importantly, there's the little girl. She's such a cuddler. lymphnet.org, which I'll put on here to read all of these in their entirety, but here's just some basic information for you guys to look over. You can hold the screen with your finger to read it all, okay? Basically what that whole paper is saying is that exercise is safe for people with lymphedema or people who are at risk for lymphedema, as long as you have been cleared by your medical team to start whatever type of activity it is that you want to do, and that you progress slowly and have proper training in that type of exercise. You shouldn't just start running a marathon because you feel like it's going to be great. You need to be properly trained. Some individuals may be recommended to wear a compression sleeve while exercising, but that is not necessarily for everyone. So basically the moral of the story is that yes, exercise is good for all of us, but you do need to discuss with your medical team the best way to go about it. The next thing I'm going to talk quickly about is flying, air travel. So I was really concerned after my lymph node removal and my surgery that because I'm at risk for lymphedema, that being on a long flight was going to trigger that. So I did some research I'll post the paper from that same organization that I just shared. Basically, the summary is that there's not really strong evidence to say whether or not flying will cause lymphedema. If you already have lymphedema, they generally recommend that you wear a compression sleeve. If you don't already have lymphedema but are at risk, then they want you to discuss with your doctor whether or not you should wear a compression sleeve, and that's a conversation and decision that is made between you and your physician. So the tricky thing with lymphedema is that we know what it is and why our lymphatic systems can't process fluid out as well once we've had lymph nodes removed, but they don't know specifically why certain people get it and certain people don't. So generally we know that if you have a full axillary lymph node dissection, or you have more lymph nodes removed, or if you have a BMI over 25, or if you have an infection, you're potentially more at risk for developing lymphedema. But beyond that, there's not a good amount of research to suggest any other triggers. So we can do what we can to reduce the risk of developing it by preventing people from taking blood pressure on that arm and not having blood draws or injections or things like that on the side that you had lymph nodes removed on. Again, that's only going to hopefully reduce our risk of developing lymphedema. It's not guaranteed prevention. If you go back to that first little sheet that I posted, that has all just the quick tips and tricks of your hopefully risk reducing strategies. So take a look back at that and screenshot it, and then you always have it with you. So someone asked, like, what are exercises you can do to minimize side effects from tamoxifen, which is a great question because muscle and joint pain is usually one of the most common side effects on most kinds of endocrine therapy. So for example, I'm on exemestane and Zoladex, and I definitely have noticed stiffness and pain in my hips and my back since starting that. And I think the best answer to that is that you need to find what feels good for you. Any type of exercise can be good as long as you've been cleared by your medical team and you've been properly trained on how to do that type of exercise. But some of the things that I've really liked have been SoulCycle. It's really intense, but I've really enjoyed that, and I'm able to kind of pace myself. I also used to run a lot. I don't do that as much anymore. And I also joined a rowing team for breast cancer patients and survivors. So I've been rowing indoors and outdoors, and that is a great workout, and it's super fun. And then I also will sometimes just do yoga at home, just stretching, and I'll break out my foam roller and my tennis balls and just kind of roll around on those and work out the sore spots. But if you're having changes in pain that don't seem to be related to medication, make sure you talk to your medical team about it. It is a common side effect, but you just want to make sure that they know everything that's going on with you. Otherwise, just find the exercise that makes you personally feel good and go with it. This is Wrigley, my other little babe. Say hi, bud. Hi. Such a sweetie. The last big question that I had got was about tissue expanders and recovery related to that. Tissue expanders are sometimes used after a mastectomy to stretch the skin out and prepare it for an implant. Not everyone undergoes the tissue expansion process, but that's what my surgeon and I decided was the best route for me. So I had expanders placed during my mastectomy, and they put 100 cc's of saline fluid in there at that time. And then about 3 weeks after my surgery, when the incisions had healed up, I started getting them filled up. First we did 50 cc's. Then I tolerated that well, so the next visit we did 100 cc's. Tolerated that pretty well. And then the last visit I had with my plastic surgeon, he just put 50 cc's in on the right side because that one was looking a little smaller than the left. And at that point, that was the first time that I felt really any discomfort related to the expanders. I just felt really tight after that. I didn't have any pain. I have heard of a lot of women that have had pain related to the expanders, and I've worked with patients post mastectomy that have had a lot of pain because of the expanders, but it's not something that everyone experiences. And I think that something that really helped me manage that was stretching as soon as my surgeon allowed me to, and doing some self-scar mobilization as soon as my surgeon allowed me to. So I will have my implants put in about a week and a half. I'm super excited. But if you guys have any other specific questions about tissue expanders or what that whole process was like, please just let me know. That's the end of the day for me, but thank you so much to Survivor Chest for having me take over your stories today. If you guys ever want to chat about anything or have questions or really just anything, just follow me, send me a message, and I'd be happy to talk anytime. Hope everyone has a good Monday.